Hello everyone, and welcome to the second game in this series, which is focused on helping USCF 1000 to 1500 rated players work on their analysis to improve their chess game. So for this video, this week I played a long time control game against Lichess user Venipro, and after the game we analyzed together and had a nice analysis session, and my initial plan was to cut and upload some of that for this video so you could see us analyzing together. Unfortunately, I had a bit of a technical glitch, so I'm not able to upload that. So instead, I'm going to look at a specific position from our game and do more of a normal one position analysis. What should we do? Like the last video. If you would like to play one of these long time control games and analysis sessions with me, look in the video description for a link to a calendar where you can reserve a slot to play one of these games against me. And you can also look in the video description for my Twitter handle, so you can either subscribe to me on YouTube or follow me on Twitter, and whenever I post a video I will put it in both those places, and so you'll see it and you'll get notified. Okay, so with that, let's jump into this game. So first again, I'll just run through the game quickly to get a brief memory of what happened. So I was black in this game, but I'm going to keep the board from the white perspective for this. And I've already have the game loaded into Skid vs. PC. So if we start stepping through the game, we see it was a London game. I played b6, kind of an Indian London system. Step through. Okay, I was managed to get a knight for a bishop, or bishop for my knight. Up a pawn. Started kingside attack. Trade down some stuff. More trades. A lot of pawns. More pawns. Okay, and this has got to be a purely winning endgame for black, right? So we play through the endgame, and Venipro was nice enough to play through the endgame with me, and so we could analyze the whole game and look at the endgame as well. Okay, so the position I want to look at is way back here. There's plenty to be said about earlier places in this game. This decision with Queen f6 is questionable from black, and he and I talked a lot about that during the game, but during the analysis rather. But the position I want to look at is after bishop takes d7 check, king, and then queen a4 check. So in this position as white, we have a couple of issues. Our first issue is that our knights are our knights are having problems getting activated. It's hard to move either of the knights at this current moment because of what it does to the position and to the knights. So if, for example, we move our knight that's on d2, we always have to be worried about bishop takes f3, and after either g takes f3 or queen takes f3, queen takes f3, g takes f3, then we have we're already down a pawn, and we've traded a knight for a bishop, so we're in this bishop versus knight endgame, but our king is exposed. This doesn't look great. It doesn't seem like we're really going to be able to completely lock down the pawn structures with these pieces, and so eventually black should be able to open up the game, and their bishop is going to prove more effective, and again we're also down a pawn, so that's hard to do. And our knight on f3 just currently has no squares that it can actually go to, right? So this is defended by the pawn. These are both defended by the queen, and then any other square that the knight could move to has a piece on it. So we need to look after our piece activity a little bit, and queen a4 doesn't really help us achieve that, because it doesn't open up any squares for either of our knights to go to. It actually takes away a defender of f3, right? So now we really can't move the knight on d2. Let's just say, something silly maybe. Oh, black's in check, so let's just say something silly. If we cover the check and... Okay, if we don't cover the check that way, let's say we play b5, we cover the check this way, move the queen. Okay, so let's just make a random move. We try to move this knight off of d2. Now not only do we ruin our pawn structure, but we also drop a pawn, right? So now we're down 2 pawns. So it takes away a defender of f3. And there's a lot of ways that black can immediately reply to both get out of check as well as improve their position a little bit. So b5, like we looked at, maybe gain some space on the queen side, and that may be beneficial for black in the long run. The game move bishop c6 forces an immediate reply from white, and possibly we get to play our king to c8 into b7. Oops. So that can also be beneficial for black. So we want to look at other moves other than queen a4 check that we could play here as white. So we can't move really either of our knights, as we said. Part of that is an issue with not having the available squares for the knight on f3, but the other part is the bishop on b7 is exerting a lot of control over this diagonal. So we want to try to find a way to blunt that bishop. So if we're in a position like this where there's no immediate threat from black, there's no immediate tactic where we're about to drop a couple pieces or pawns, right? And there's no immediate threat that we can make that also is some tactical threat that can help us improve our position. These, I think, for me especially, are some of the toughest positions to have to look at, just because really it opens up the possibilities so much to what we could play, what we could do. So in this position, then, as white, we want to try to focus in on one thing that is really bugging us about the black pieces. And right now there's only really one thing, okay, maybe two things that are bugging us about the black pieces. The first is maybe we're a little annoyed by the position of the queen. It's controlling a lot of squares, it's exerting pressure, and it's pretty far advanced, more advanced into our position than we would like. The other thing is as we said, the presence of this bishop and the influence of this bishop. So first, let's think, how can we get rid of the queen or cause the queen to have less influence, get it to go away, basically. So rook e4 we could think about, right? Whoops. It initially attacks the queen. Queen has to move, but of course, thanks to this bishop, it's just completely hanging. We can't offer a queen trade without having to move this knight on d2, and as we said, that can just ruin our kingside structure. g3 initially will kick the knight, and we've got enough defenders for the moment, but this also feels maybe just a little too loose with this bishop being on this diagonal. As white, we don't have our light squared bishop anymore, so that's another piece that we don't have to help cover those squares. and it's right by our king. So, okay, it does prompt an immediate response from black, but maybe we can just play queen g4. Queen g4 would be nice for black because we could always try to trade queens. Of course, queen g4 from black is really not that great. To an immediate tactic from white, right? Knight checks. Hopefully we caught that. Pawn takes, queen takes. So black can't play queen g4. So probably queen g6 is the other move that black looks at, so that they can, still try to advance these pawns to cause havoc. So queen g6, the queen goes back. It covers a few less squares, but we could think about something like knight e4 as white now, continuing to harass the queen. Doesn't seem like we're going to be able to completely get rid of this queen. Oh, goodness, we can't go there, can we? That drops the queen. So we've got to come here. Okay, we've pushed the queen around. We've developed our knights a little bit. So maybe instead when we play knight e4, black can just take bishop e4, rook e4, and now d5. Look back, bishop d6. Okay, maybe we've improved our position a little bit, but again, our king feels a little loose, right? h4 is coming. It's hard for us to distract the queen now. And the black king seems pretty safe. And we've helped black, at the very least, develop this bishop. This piece that was not developed, was on the back rank, right? We helped black get it into the game. Okay, so maybe we think about g3. Maybe there's a path we can see for white. But now we want to think, what's another possibility? Is there anything else we could do? Instead of looking at the black queen, the other piece that we're being annoyed by black is the black bishop. So is there some other way that we can harass this piece? Well, it's really exerting a lot of pressure on this diagonal. So we want to try to find a way to limit its pressure for us to control some of those squares, right? So, okay, so think about them for a minute maybe and see if there's a way that we can help to exert some pressure on these squares. So it's a little hard of a move to spot, especially for this particular structure, but c4 can be a very helpful move here, with the idea of being able to play d5. The reason for this is that we want to control all these squares here. If we can play d5, we can really shut the bishop out of the game. It's hard to see because it feels like we have a solid pawn structure as white already with these pawns here. But the black dark squared bishop is not in the game at all right now. It's completely undeveloped. So these pawns would be helpful to limit the scope of the black dark squared bishop, but they don't do us any good in helping us to limit the scope of the black light squared bishop. So we should always think about being able to move them. And so we can even play c4 immediately. c4, and now if black tries to, strike in the center, reach out, we can think about playing d5 right away, and now we've already helped ourselves limit the scope of this bishop. Additionally, if black plays maybe d5 is also a move we want to look at, a pawn move by black, d5. We can play maybe b3, so if black takes, we can take back with our pawn and keep some pressure on d5. And at the moment, we're not as worried about it because black has limited their own bishop by playing d5 here, right? So that's help for us as well. c5, also maybe a move we want to look at. All these pawn moves that affect both of these pieces here. So we want to see now if there's something we can do. Some moves that we can play. So can we play d5 immediately is the question. So if we look at it, d5, e takes d5 is the response from black we have to consider. Seems like maybe we're in a little problem here because takes doesn't seem to do us really much good, right? There's always the possibility to play this knight, and then either with or without an exchange, this pawn is going to be pinned by the queen, so we could play, let's say here, and then maybe we play it as an intermezzo maybe. But then after the king moves somewhere safe, like c7, sure, there are bad squares for the king, but if the king has a safe square and it moves there, now it seems like we've got a bit of a problem, right? So, but after e takes, we can also think about other moves at this position, and maybe a move we try to play here is queen b3, with the idea that now we're trying to use our queen in the moments we've created to, by these moves. Now we try to use our queen to attack some weaknesses that are in the black camp, like b3. So it looks like the king's got to cover with king c7. Anything else seems pretty dangerous for black, right? And now we can always play cd5, and now for the moment at least we've blunted the bishop, and we give ourselves time to develop our rook maybe here. Our knight now maybe can come, has different places that it can move. So it seems like that is maybe not bad. So with this queen b3 idea too, we can always think about playing that immediately instead of c4 as another way to help gain control of this d5 square, so that we can later push these pawns with the same idea to control the diagonal for this bishop. So let's say queen b3. What does black want to play? Black might try castling queenside by hand, right? Rook d8, so that they can play the king to c8. Maybe now we can probably play c4 again. Again, if black plays like this, we can really close down in the center and limit the bishop. And now this even looks a little more dangerous for black because his king is kind of really stuck in the center now. And if it goes to c8, maybe we can move our queenside pawns. So black probably doesn't want to play d5, or excuse me, e5. d5 is maybe a possibility. But again, this is just helping to limit black's own bishop, so we probably don't need to immediately capture it and help black in that sense. Maybe we already want to play a4 to try to play a5 to open up the position while the king is still stuck in the middle a little bit, and ours is a little safe now. And maybe we also need to look at something like b7, black trying to get their last piece into the game. And now maybe this rook can come to the center, so we can centralize our rooks before and add another control of this square if we're able to move this knight. Okay, so as always, we should check ourselves with our computer and see what it likes to play and see if we've missed any obvious tactical mistakes. Okay, so after bishop takes, king takes, okay, it immediately starts to like c4. Seems like queen b3 is also an idea. So let's look at our first move that we wanted to play. An idea that we had was to play g3, right? So g3, queen f5, queen f6, queen g4 is obviously bad, so let's look at queen f6, the move that we did think about. And after 94, queen f5, not a move that we considered. And h4, queen d5. So now black is starting to use the power of this bishop and this queen together. I mean, the computer's dancing around a little bit. It doesn't seem like it's a knockout blow for black, but as we said at the time, it doesn't seem like necessarily white's done a lot to help themselves too much. Maybe they've hurt themselves a little bit with that, with white playing g3, according to the evaluation, but you know, not a ton. But it does like c4, the computer. So let's look at our lines with c4. And after some different moves from black, so let's say, let's look at these. So d5. We can play d5. That's certainly down on this list, but also the immediate d takes e5. Again, because, okay, our king, the black king's in the center, so now that black's made a little bit of a tactical mistake of allowing us to open the center while his king is still there. We should jump on that as opposed to sticking with our plan of limiting the bishop. This also seems to be okay for white. Maybe. Pretty close. Computer's going around. After f5. Dancing around. But so we should play d takes and open up and go for the king while the king's still in the center here. After d5. Now that black has really limited the scope of their own bishop, now we can, it looks like, go ahead and start to attack the queen, because it's harder now for black to rook e5 even. So we can even add a protector there with the rook. So when we get that brief respite from the power of the bishop, then we can, it seems like we can go and harass the queen and improve our pieces in that manner. And after c5, thinks g3 is maybe okay. d5 it thinks is also maybe okay. So after g3, queen f5, d takes c5. Doesn't like that so much anymore, does it? So it doesn't like g3 as much anymore. So now it likes d5, the move that we had looked at, and e5 and queen b3 to go look at this weak pawn that black created, king c7. C takes d5, which is the line that we had looked at. You got to give it a little time to settle down, but it seems to think that white is, also still okay. Maybe it's a little better for black because this bishop is going to come alive at some point, and his king is now a little safer than it was before, and the queen is out here, but not bad. So it seems that in this case we didn't miss any huge tactical blunders. So in this position then, instead of immediately jumping out with queen a4 to go and give a check and attack the black king, which maybe doesn't help us so much, we should look for ways that we can try to limit the scope of black a little bit by trying to limit the pressure of the bishop, maybe with c4 or maybe with queen b3 immediately, to try to get control of some of these squares. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it fun and informative and helpful. And stay tuned for next week when I will try to get my technical kinks sorted and post analysis between myself and the person I'm going to be playing next week. Thanks very much.